Turkey is escalating attacks on U.S.-backed Kurdish fighters in northern Syria, while the Trump administration defends moving American troops out of the way. Turkish artillery warplanes and troops have killed at least 16 Kurdish fighters and wounded 33, according to one human rights group. President Trump's critics, including some Republicans, say the U.S. abandoned the Kurds who fought ISIS on America's behalf. The president agreed to pull back U.S. troops after a Sunday phone call with Turkey's president. Yesterday, Mr. Trump called the invasion a bad idea.
Republican Senator Rand Paul is backing President Trump's decision to withdraw U.S. troops from northern Syria. The Kentucky lawmaker who ran against President Trump in the 2016 election has become a supporter of his foreign policy. Senator Paul's new book is called The Case Against Socialism. He writes about U.S. politics, including 2020 presidential contender Senator Bernie Sanders. Senator Paul joins us now for his first television interview about the book. Senator, good morning.
Good morning.
Let me start with Syria, if I can, because in a report from Syria earlier in this broadcast, our Charlie Daggett said Kurdish fighters feel abandoned and betrayed. Have we turned our backs on our allies and put us and kind of left ourselves in a vulnerable position with ISIS?
You know, I think initially when President Trump decided to go in, he said that our goal was to defeat ISIS. I think we've achieved that goal. Many people keep shifting the goalposts. Many of the neoconservatives like Lindsey Graham say, oh, well, now we're going to stay till Iran goes or until Syria is a country. Well, good luck. I mean, that could be a long time. It's a very complicated war. And really, think about what we're talking about. We're talking about 50 soldiers. What kind of war do you go to with 50 soldiers? I mean, we're moving 50 soldiers out of the onslaught of tens of thousands of Turkish troops. So really, I think it's a smart thing to do, and it reminds me of Beirut. Do you remember putting 300 people, when Reagan had 300 people in a barracks unprotected, and then there was a suicide bombing? So what I don't want to have happen, I've got 3 nephews who serve in the military. I don't want them to be sitting ducks with 50 or 100 of them be killed by a suicide bomber, and then all of a sudden we're drug into a greater war. Who are we going to fight? We're going to fight Turkey, our NATO ally. We're going to fight the Kurds. We're going to fight Assad, the Russians, the Iranians, the Iraqis. I mean, the whole place is a mess.
But the Kurds have been very loyal allies to us.
But what we need is not 50 soldiers fighting a war. What we need is a multilateral group to sit down and try to hammer out a peace. I actually think the Kurds are more likely to try to find peace now that they know that they're either going to have to fight or find peace. So I think really maybe we have been impeding peace talks. Maybe this can encourage peace talks.
Senator, could you clarify your position on impeachment before we get to the book here? Do you think it was appropriate for President Trump to solicit foreign help in the 2020 campaign, or do you think it was inappropriate but just not impeachable?
I think that the American people want everybody to be treated equally. And so I think when they see Joe Biden doing similar accusations, that Joe Biden threatened their aid if they didn't fire a prosecutor that was looking into a company where Hunter Biden was making $50,000 a month. So I would say if that's going on, and then Democrat senators are also threatening the aid, and now President Trump is saying, they're saying President Trump threatened the aid, sounds like everybody's threatening Ukraine's aid over Ukraine doing what they want them to do. So if you want to be equal, people, if you want to impeach President Trump, they should have impeached Joe Biden as well for similar type of activity.
But that's not, is it wrong or isn't it?
Yeah.
Well, no, I think it's not incorrect or wrong to...
It's okay for the president to be...
No, let me finish. What I would say is that aid that we give to other countries should be contingent upon behavior. And whether or not we should have Ukraine trying to eradicate corruption, yes. So
this was specifically about...
Well, I don't know. Ask the American people if they think $50,000... No,
I'm asking you. You're a senator.
I know, but ask the American people, do you think $50,000 a month that Hunter Biden was getting might be corrupt?
You were running for president in 2016. Would you have done this if you were elected?
I think everybody has different ways that they would approach things, but...
Sir, you.
Well, the thing is now we're getting down to whether or not it's personality and how he reacted in a phone call. Do you impeach people because he has a more direct way of approaching people?
It's not a question of impeachment. My question is it right or wrong to ask a foreign leader to help in an election with, by the way, nearly $400 million in aid hanging over his head?
I guess the thing is, would you say we can't invest corruption if they happen to be political figures?
It's not. It's
well,
not.
It is, because
you're talking. He wasn't speaking to broader corruption. He used that word, but he spoke specifically about Mr. Biden.
So if Hunter Biden's father was an industrial magnate in the United States, you'd say it's okay that he asked to investigate Hunter Biden. Just because he was a politician, you say he's somehow involved in politics.
He's more than a politician. He's the Democratic front runner.
Well, I think the chances of Joe Biden actually being the nominee are almost zero. But what I would say is that the American people want corruption to be looked at equally. They want equal protection under the law. So if we're going to say what President Trump did was wrong, we're going to have to say what Joe Biden did was wrong. You have four.
You're not answering my question.
Was
it wrong?
I'm trying.
Was it wrong?
Four Democratic senators came forward and said, "Hey, if you don't keep investigating Trump, we're going to vote against your aid." Everybody, Republican or Democrat, are doing the exact same thing. So how can we say it's impeachable on one side and we're going to excuse Joe Biden on the other side?
Notably absent is an answer to the question of whether you, Rand Paul, think it's appropriate. However, I do want to get to the book because socialism is also in the news these days. You write that people misunderstand it. They throw the term out there, but when you ask them to actually define it, it's a much more problematic thing. So these polls that show support are kind of misleading.
I think a lot of this next generation, the young people in our country now that may be infatuated with socialism, may have forgotten that the socialism of the last century has been almost invariably associated with genocide and famine. People need to be reminded of that. It hasn't been an accident. It's been one after another. Socialism has devolved into authoritarianism. Nowadays, the big thing is, oh, well, we want this kinder, gentler socialism. We want Scandinavian socialism. Well, we make the point, I think very clearly and supported by facts, that one, Scandinavia is not socialist. It is a big welfare state. But the big lie you're getting from the left in our country, and the big lie that Bernie Sanders perpetuates is, oh, but the rich people will pay for it. The top 1% will pay for it. That's not the way they do it in Scandinavia. The working class and the middle class bear a huge burden over there. 25% sales tax for everybody. You have an income tax of 60% that starts at $60,000. So they do have a lot of so-called free stuff, socialist kind of stuff, welfare stuff in Scandinavia, but the middle class pay for it. Nothing's really for free. They have enormous taxes. So it's a false allure in our country when they say, oh, the top 1% is going to pay for this. It won't work. There's not enough money. The middle class ultimately has to be taxed.
Senator Paul, you also talk a lot in your book about finding common ground.
Right.
How do you do that?
Yeah.
How do you do that when you look at the rhetoric that's happening?
Right.
And
well,
even just the disposition that you've taken with not being able to answer a question.
Here's the thing. I was at Columbia last night, and they asked me, what are things you like about Bernie Sanders? And the interesting thing is he and I work together on a lot of things. For example, on war, whether or not the president should be allowed to go to war in Iran without Congress voting on it.
And while you and Bernie Sanders
might
be able to do that, how do you make sure that the president of the United States and others who are in even more powerful positions find that common ground? And have you actually spoken to the president in reference to Syria?
I have not since the decision to move 50 troops around. I have not talked to the president. But I talked to the president about 2 weeks ago, and every couple of weeks I do talk to the president. What I would say is that I think there's a misreporting of acrimony in our country. There's a lot of acrimony on the internet. There's a lot of acrimony actually on television. But when you go to Washington, you'll be surprised to find that Bernie and I get along. I've been to his office. He's been to my office. We talk about things like criminal justice reform. We talk about trying not to go to war without a declaration. We've worked together on trying to end the war in Yemen. I don't like socialism. I think socialism is a disaster, and he's absolutely wrong. But guess what? When we talk, we don't actually bring up socialism so much because we disagree on that, but we bring up foreign policy, and we get on just fine.
All right.
Thank you.
There are a lot of things that socialism apparently may be able to help with, like paid parental leave and health care and all the rest, but maybe there are other ways other than socialism to get to those ends.
Just where's the money? Find the money.
Find the money, yeah. It's
We're
all about
$1 trillion
choices.
short right now trying to do the stuff you want from government. If you want more from government, I say, tell me where to find the money.
It is. It's all about choices. Senator Rand Paul, thank you very much. We appreciate you being here. The Case Against Socialism goes on sale October 15th.